All right, so I get to be first, and then Joel will be up behind me. My topic is safety data sheets. We have yet to really roll into these. I haven't really received them from vendors yet, but I expect over the summer we will be pulling out our MSDS books and putting in SDS books. So it would be a pretty big project this summer for us. But anyway, SDS data sheets are really important, and we're going to see the 5 Ws and the one standalone H. And this training is going to teach what an SDS is, how to read an SDS, and the importance related to the products and items you use in performing your jobs. And I'll probably go back and forth with the word products and chemicals. And I put items in there because Paul ordered a crowbar, and it came with an SDS sheet. Who would have thought? I should have had you bring it, because it would have been interesting to see what's on there. But anyway, so who would have thought a crowbar would have had a SDS sheet? But it does. Our outline is what is a SDS? Why is the SDS important? Who needs to be familiar with the SDS? I mean, obviously, they're about 15 pages long. You're not going to, well, actually 7. I exaggerated. You're not going to memorize the whole thing for every product that you use. But it's good to be familiar with them, where certain items are. When do you need an SDS? Where do you find an SDS? And how do you read an SDS? So you all received an SDS on acetone. Not a product custodial uses, but it was one that I could find that would give me all the information. Lesson 1, what is SDS? Well, it's a safety data sheet. Formerly, as I said, was a material safety data sheet, and they're a very essential component of the GHS. And we'll talk about what the GHS is here in a few minutes. And they're intended to provide comprehensive information about a substance or mixture for use in the workplace for chemical management. So every chemical or product should have SDS with it that will outline risk, what the product's made of, if it catches on fire, etc. Then they're required by OSHA to be made available and accessible to all employees. So it is our responsibility to make sure we have them and they're current, which they're not, and I apologize for that, and that they're in a place that every employee knows where they are and can put their hands on them quickly. We haven't quite gone to electronic SDS yet system, but I think that could be the future, that we just get them. They're on the shared drive, everybody has access to it, and can go to it and find them quickly. The two main differences of the SDS and the MSDS is that the SDS uses pictograms and are uniformed. So in the past, when you picked up an MSDS, you know, the hazard identification could have been on the last page and the first aid could be on the first page. Well, now they're all going to be uniform. So no matter what the product is, when you pick up the SDS, it's going to be in the same order. So you're going to know quickly that, you know, hazard first aid is on the second page, for example, that kind of thing. The pictograms on the SDS must match the pictogram on the product. So as our products are coming in, they should also have the same pictogram on it that's on the SDS. If they don't match, then we need to push back and say, hey, something's wrong here. So you should be looking at your product and looking at your SDS the first initial time you're using it and make sure everything matches up. And here's just a first page of SDS, so you can see the pictograms on there. And so every SDS will have it be in that order. So 1 would be identification of the substance, 2 would be hazard identification. Okay, GHS. What is GHS? GHS stands for Global Harmonized Systems of the Classification and Labeling of Chemical. So it's just a government entity that came together and said, we want to have a more uniformed process in place for identifying, transporting, and using hazardous materials. So it's a set of guidelines for ensuring safe production, transport, handling, use, and disposal of hazard materials. And as I said, the most noticeable changes brought by GHS for most organizations will be the change to safety labels, safety data sheets, and chemical classification. So you might see something classified a little bit different than it was before. An example, the GHS refers to safety data sheets as SDS, dropping the M from material safety data sheets, as most American companies are used to. So now this MSDS standard was just an American standard. This standard, the SDS, and everything the GHS is doing is global. So it's from one country to the other, all trying to get on the same page. The GHS also standardized the content and formatting of the SDS into 16 sections with a strict ordering. Labels also look quite different with 6 standardized elements that include specific language depending upon chemical classification. GHS is meant to be logical and comprehensive approach to defining health, physical, and environment hazards of chemicals, creating classification processes that use available data on chemicals for components with the defined hazard criteria, and communicating hazard information in a prescribed and uniform way on labels and safety data sheets. So that's the GHS part of why it comes as part of the SDS. Why is the SDS important? They're used as a source of info about hazards, including environmental hazards, and to obtain advice on safety precautions. So these are made so we know what products we're using, we know what's in the product, we know how and what to do for safety precautions. It's going to tell you what PPE to wear, and etc. SDS also provides important source of information for other target audience in the GHS. So certain elements may be used for transport of dangerous goods. So there's information in there if we were going to transport a chemical across to China, as I'm sure we do very often, or back from China. It's for emergency responders, which includes poison centers. So if a chemical is used in the wrong way and the person is injured or inhaled something, well, we can get that SDS out and give it to the emergency responders or communicate to the poison center what it says on that. So that's, and also involved in the professional use of pesticides and consumers. So our pest guy that comes, I'm sure he has an SDS on every chemical he's using on our campus. So if there was something to happen, we could look at it and say, oh, this is why this is happening and this is what we need to do. Who should use an SDS? Anybody who will be using a product or item that has potential hazard. So everybody in this room, somehow, some way, uses a product that has a SDS. If you're in an office and you're using whiteout, there's a SDS for whiteout. So, and then the rest of you guys are all out in the mechanical area, have chemicals, custodial has chemicals. So I don't think anybody in this room is exempt from an SDS. I'll grab my coffee real quick. So they are really, really important, and everybody should be familiar with them. When do you need to use an SDS? Sorry. Before you use a chemical or item that has a potential hazard. So before any chemical that you've never used before, you've never read the safety data sheet on, you need to be looking for it, reading it, learning about the product, learning what to do. If there's a spill, just learning the first aid about it, what PPE you should be wearing before you use that product. If you're not sure if that item has a SDS, because who thought whiteout had a SDS, especially the little gun one? I mean, who thought? But it does. If you're not sure, refer to the SDS manual or ask your supervisor, and they'll help you out, okay? The other reason you would need a SDS is if an incident occurs with a chemical or product and you need to know what steps to take. So for some reason, somebody inhales our Clean by Proxy, and they start showing weird symptoms. We're going to want to pull the SDS out to find out how to treat them, get them help. Sorry, should have got some water. Where do you find a SDS? You can find it in 3 places. Safety data sheets are located in custodial closet of each building, in the MAB of FPO, that's the administrator building, and in the North FPO building outside of Paul and Tom's office. How do you read an SDS? So everybody has one of these, and I just thought we kind of like just breeze through them it a little bit, but certainly take it with you and familiarize yourself with it at a deeper level. So there is 16 sections in an SDS. So obviously they're still quite encumbersome and has a lot of information that you're probably not going to want or need to know up front. But hazard identification tells you what the hazard is. So there's the pictograms on here, and we'll review those here in just a minute. Tells you, the first one tells you what the substance is, the mixture, the company. Then section 3 tells you composition, information on ingredients. Probably might want to know that, but not necessarily, as the first thing. You are going to want to know the first aid measures of the product. Firefighting measures. It catches on fire. How do you put it out? Accidental release measures. So the product gets released in a way it wasn't meant to be released. You're going to need to know how to take care of it. Handling and storage. So when we get that product, we need to know how to handle it and how to store it, so that we make sure we don't have an incident because we stored it or handled it incorrectly. Exposure controls, personal protection. So your PPE, it's going to tell you, and it's got pictures of what you need for this product, to be using for this product. Personal protection equipment, here's what it's suggesting, okay? And so those are the items you should be wearing when you use this product. And I think we might be kind of surprised if we looked a little bit closer at some of our SDSs and what the PPE is that we're supposed to be wearing, and are we really wearing it? I would say that most products, especially for the custodials, requires goggles and gloves. And so we want to make sure we're going back and really following through with those procedures and knowing what they say. Physical and chemical properties. So, here it's going to tell you physical state, color, appearance, and all pH and all that. And it's just good information to kind of read through and know how to dispose of it correctly. And so I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but that is the purpose of the SDS. So it has every bit of information you need to know. Okay, so what you're going to want to know is the pictograms. And this one, it's not as clear as I wanted it to be, but you can kind of see the health hazards and what that kind of outlines. And that symbol for health hazard, for flame, exclamation mark, gas cylinder, corrosion, exploding bombs, skull and crossbones, environment, flame over, circle. So those are all going to tell you. And notice that the aquatic toxicity and the crossbones, acute toxicity. So they're both toxicity, but they're very different. And so pay attention to that. I believe it is on your quiz. So one is aquatic, so that's water. And then the other one is acute toxicity. So a little bit different there. And here's some more physical hazards. Just more pictures of them, a little bit clearer, but didn't have as much explanation underneath them. And just remember, whatever is on your SDS, your safety data sheet, should be on your chemical. So when you pick up the bottle of Clean by Proxy, if it has the irritant, the explanation sign on it, then it should be on the bottle as well. You know, they should match, okay? And they're all going to be with the red outline, the white background, and a black print. So, okay, recap real quick. SDS is a document that gives uniform information for products and items that could be hazard. Why they are important? Because they give us info about hazards of products and obtain advice on safety precautions. Who? Anybody who is going to use a product that has potential hazards. When? Before you use a product or item that has potential hazard, or if an incident occurs with a chemical or product, you need to know what steps to take. Where? They are in the MAB, the North Building of FPO, and Custodial Closet. How? So just some of the things about them is there's 16 sections. Some of those are proper PPE usage, hazard, storage, fire measures, etc. They use pictograms to identify hazard types, and they use pictograms on the label of the product should match the SDS sheet. Any questions on that? No? You guys ready for your quiz? Let's get a quiz. And just so the custodial staff knows that this summer we'll be going through all of ours and pulling them out and redoing them, and probably doing a training where we're going to actually look at a SDS and a chemical and match them up and ask you guys to do some reading of the new SDSs that we get, probably maybe in September when we all get back together for the semester. Everybody ready for the quiz? Okay, how is the SDS different from the MSDS? D, correct. Yeah, they are uniformed and they have pictograms. In what section would you find hazard identification? Two. Good. Section 4 of SDS will have information about, yeah, and so every SDS should have, section 4 is first aid. The symbol on the label of the product does not have to match the SDS. True or false? GHS is meant to be a logical and comprehensive approach to. SDS are required by OSHA for all chemicals and are required to be accessible to all employees.
True.
What does the exclamation stand for? Okay. What does the crossbones stand for? B. And what does the explosion sign stand for?
Explosive.
Yeah. And where are SDS kept?
All the above.
Okay. So just make sure your name is on your quiz and turn it in to Cassie. And Joel, you're up.